recording, and the recorded session will be published on the YouTube channel when I get around to curate it. There's a lot of stuff going on when you have a recording and that you have to take care of. But yeah, enough about that. To today's session, I'm happy to have Jon back. It's been a year since you were on the show last, and I know this is something that you've worked with intimately for many years, and now finally Fabric has something in store that is maybe making that journey easier. And I think that's some of the presentation. Jon, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Thank you for the invite, Jens, even if it was a little last minute, so to say, replacing the previously proposed session with me today. But super happy to be here. As you said, it's been a year. I've been on paternity leave myself for the past five months, so this is my first sort of speaking gig in a while. So apologies if especially my language is a little rusty. Truth be told, I feel like I need to relearn to speak sort of data professionally. It's a little strange to be coming back like this. But I mean, what a world to come back to, right? I obviously haven't left the game completely and was following along in the late nights, also looking at today's topic while I was away. So I'm super excited to present this session for the first time. Fabric Plan, the what, why, and how, brand new feature in Microsoft Fabric, available to everybody in preview today. And we will cover the what, why, and how. Before we get too deep into it, for those of you who've not met me before, I'm Jon, or John, consultant with Inspire, based in Lyngby for my sake, but we have an office in Lystrup outside of Aarhus as well. If you find anything that I'm talking about today remotely interesting, find me on LinkedIn, ask me about it. I'd love to chat with you. I have a blog as well where I write about some of these things. What does that even mean? Well, to me, one of the most brilliant things about Power BI and Microsoft Fabric is how it enables regular business people to do so much more with their data than they were used to. And I've been advocating for a long, long time how to build extensions for Power BI, how to build write back solutions with Power Apps or translytical task flows and those kind of things. That's what you'll often see me discuss. And now we have a new kid on the block here, Fabric Plan, that promises some of those things that were previously covered by those custom extensions, but natively in Fabric. So I want to give you guys a little bit of a tour here. And if this was a live session, I would have asked you to raise your hand if you'd already been playing around with this, just to get a feel for the level of knowledge about this in the audience. But I think a live poll of that is a little too much. So I'm going to assume that most of you have not touched Fabric Plan. Those of you who have, you'll probably feel the interesting stuff coming a little further on in the session, but this will be a sort of 360 view of what is Fabric Plan, what can you use it for, what are some of the shortcomings as well, because this is not a perfect tool by any means. It's still in preview as well, remember that. And that's kind of what you can expect from this session. Don't expect super detailed technical stuff about how to make the most of individual little features within the suite of tools that Fabric Plan encompasses. Expect more the 360 view and how to get started, and some honest commentary comparing this solution to alternatives out there and reflections on whether you should invest in this or not. So what is Fabric Plan? I think the best way to describe it is that it's really a suite of tools. It almost feels like it's adding an entire new experience to Fabric, even though Fabric Plan is technically part of the also new Fabric IQ experience, which also includes ontologies and graphs and I think technically semantic models. But Fabric Plan is an item in Microsoft Fabric that you can create, just like any other item, reports, lakehouses, semantic models, all those, they are all items. Fabric Plan is an item. And within the Fabric Plan item, you can currently, I think they're planning on adding more, but you can currently create 3 different kinds of components. There are planning sheets, power table sheets, and intelligence sheets. And they kind of fill different purposes, but also have overlapping functionality. You can combine some of these together in the same interface, but they are 3 distinct components, and they are the 3 that we'll be touching on today. planning is this M tool, Enterprise Performance Management. It's a tool for creating interactive budgeting, forecasting, scenario models directly in Microsoft Fabric. Think of this as the tool to kill your budgeting Excel sheet. You connect to either an existing semantic model or existing tables in your SQL databases in Fabric, or you can even start your planning from a uploaded spreadsheet or query an external source, and then write back the entire table structure down to your SQL databases afterwards. When you interact with these plans, and you'll get to see it in a live demo as well, you are not limited to the schema of whatever input source you gave the sheet. You are free to add new calculated or manually inputted columns and rows. So by all means, it looks and feels very much like interacting with Excel just within Microsoft Fabric. There's obviously things that work way differently. You'll not be doing lookup formulas the same way, although you can create lookup and reference columns and that kind of stuff to pull in data from your data estate. And everything in this planning sheet will be possible. Everything that you input, all the changes that you make will be possible to write back and persist in SQL databases in Fabric. So the planning component, you should see it as a replacement for your budgeting, forecasting, scenario efforts that you're currently doing in, expensive EPM third-party tools. Perhaps you're still doing these things in Excel. And this serves as a very, very easy way to persist some of this data right inside your data platform and ready for you to use in the rest of Microsoft Fabric. I think that was the level 100 description of that. Power Table is more of a master data management tool. You will be able to either alter existing SQL database tables or create new tables based on a schema that you might have in Excel, or manually define it even from scratch. Basically, it's an interface for managing master data, editing tables that lives in the SQL DB. And it's pretty neat in the sense that it has a lot of built-in functionality that you, in custom solutions or in master data management software, have to spend quite a lot of time to set up. It's everything from easily exposing forms to end users for submitting new data to this master data table, to creating automated rules when a new row is inserted into this table, trigger this or that flow of actions. That could be integrating it into the rest of the platform, triggering a pipeline run, all that kind of stuff. It could also be approval flows. Every time a change is made to the table, do this nested approval flow where first this person is asked and then this person is asked, and you can make all kinds of conditional logic in those flows as well. It just comes with a lot of functionality out of the box for something that's built natively into Fabric, and it really works quite well. There are downsides. We'll get back to that, but overall, I'm feeling very positive about Power Table as a component on its own, especially for replacing. Well, heck, I used to build master data management solutions with Power Apps not many years ago, and while they worked, this replaces a 200-hour development effort. That's just where we're at if you're trying to replace like a static Excel sheet somewhere. More about that during the live demo. The third component here is the intelligence sheets that we can create and plan, which is it's a weird sort of Power BI replacement. You can build IBCS style visuals, you can build Gantt charts, you can embed your Power Table and planning sheets so you have them side by side with actual visualizations, and you can even, alter your planning data or alter your master data and have the changes reflected in your visualizations as you go, basically building an interactive dashboard for your end users. Pretty nifty promise. Then there are some things with the delay and how quickly changes come through and stuff like that we'll get into, but overall a pretty cool little reporting tool that allows you to, well, first of all, build some things that are really difficult to do in Power BI, and combine some of that interactivity that we've all otherwise been jumping through hoops to get into Power BI. At the downside of, personally, I'm not super impressed with the performance and things like that, but I'll let you see for yourself during the demo. There are probably some details that you read on my sheets as well that I haven't mentioned. Hopefully we'll address all of those and more during the live demo. Before we go into the live demo, just wanted to sort of make it loud and clear what's the current state of affairs here. Fabric Plan is in preview, and I think it shows. You will, of course, have to turn on the tenant setting to even start playing around with this, and you should expect behavior of a preview item that is rather early stage, I would say. I think a lot of it works pretty well, but you get a lot of weird errors, and sometimes the UI just blanks out on you and you have to refresh the page. I'm 100% sure we'll see some of that during the live demo today, so pray for me that we can show most of the things I want to. With that said, there's also a little bit of setup and sort of limitations that I wanted to address here. You should be ready to create a couple of shared cloud connections for this to use. Using single sign-on for these solutions components is what I'm trying to say, is it doesn't really work great. You have to sort of build your own security model, which is possible on top of the item inside of the item, but the connection between your semantic models and your SQL DBs will sort of hinge on fixed identities that you set up as cloud connections and then add to your planning item. So if you were dreaming of a single sign-on federated solution where the user's own identity is passed on as authentication towards your SQL DB, you're not in luck yet, at least. I don't know if there are any plans for adding that. But right now, you'll need to sort of reconfigure any security model inside of your plan. So that's a major downside, I think. You also need, and I think that makes quite a lot of sense, you need at least build permissions to work with semantic models. That's because we need to be able to read all the columns and tables and consume data from there. So read permissions are not enough. You cannot use semantic models in my workspace. Why wouldn't you anyway? And then it's just very clear that this tool is built with star schemas in mind. If you try to use the planning feature on the basis of a semantic model with no separate date table or no date hierarchy or a column marked as a date column, you'll just have a very bad time. Half the functionality won't even be functional. So I'll highly recommend you to try this out on some of your existing good semantic models, or perhaps a copy of it. You won't be editing anything in the live semantic model. Don't get me wrong here, but you never know, right? Maybe compartmentalize anything that you're using preview features for. Private link is not supported. With that sort of noted down, you can, of course, get the slides afterwards to take a screenshot. It's also all in the documentation of Fabric Plan. Let's go in and see what we can do, right? I think this is what we'll gain the most from. And bear with me here. I'm still reasonably new within this tool. I could be frantically searching for something that I was sure I knew where it was without actually knowing. Let's see where this leads us. I'm in Fabric, and I have a workspace here that's very simple. I have a demo SQL database in Fabric. I have a semantic model built on top of that, and then I have a plan item here. And I'm going to go into this plan item that I've already created, but create some new artifacts in there. This Fabric Plan SQL DB is something that the retail or something that the plan item will create on your behalf inside the workspace to handle some metadata things that happens underneath the hood when you're doing write-back tasks and stuff like that. You don't need to worry too much about it, but you, in this case, should more consider the sort of pipeline that I've built here, a SQL DB into a semantic model that I'm feeding into my plan item. That's kind of the architecture underneath my solution here. I'm not sure why it's already opening my reporting here. Maybe I had that open already. But what I want to do is to start with, that's because I'm reading mode. You need to be sure that you're in editing mode here if you want to do anything. And we're kind of skipping ahead here, seeing the intelligence sheet before I plan to. I'll quickly just create a new demo planning sheet, so that I don't distract you with what intelligence looks like. So here I'm creating a new planning sheet, and it looks a little bit like Power BI. You can, if you haven't already connected to a semantic model, you'll be able to do that from this interface. If I wanted to, I could also pull in data from other sheets I had created, or I could even create a sort of Power Query-esque query here, where I either upload an Excel or CSV file, or from scratch add a data source and do all kinds of transformations on it. It's almost data flows or Power Query or M or whatever in the sky. I actually don't even know I don't know if it's M underneath the hood or what the engine is, but there is that possibility of sort of transforming data before it even lands in your planning sheet. I have a semantic model here, and I can show my field list, and basically the planning sheet is a matrix. It's a matrix visual with a lot of added functionality. So as soon as I start adding, let's say I want to have my date hierarchy on the columns. Actually, I don't care too much for the specific date. Let's get year, quarter, and month name, and then let's put, I don't know, maybe a product hierarchy on the rows, and let's get my total revenue on the values here. And let me just zoom out a little bit. I'm realizing I'm on a machine with a horrible resolution here, and you can see it just right off the bat, it builds me a pretty standard matrix visual here, right? I can collapse these, expand these to get totals, see things on a quarter or month basis, and it works pretty neatly, I think, just right off the bat. Now, within this interface, you are free to treat this very much like Excel. I can go in and insert rows and insert columns basically however I please with any kind of data type that I would like. I can, of course, show and hide things that I'm not interested in. Frankly, there's a whole filter page where I can say I only want to display 2025 and later, if that's what I wanted to. I'm not going to go through the entire sort of what's available in terms of Excel-like features here. I would rather spend the time showing you what the budgeting, forecasting scenario exercise could look like. So just to sort of get us started with that, if you go into the modeling part of this tool, as long as you're working with a proper date dimension, you'll have the option to click this forecast button. This one will be grayed out if you don't have a proper date dimension. It needs to save before I can do that. And I can create, say, revenue forecast. I could say revenue 2026, and the period should be for the entirety of 2026. There's a lot of options here. I won't cover all of them, but basically you have the option to sort of define how this column that you're creating will behave also back in time and ahead in time, if that makes sense. Then you can split up this period into smaller period ranges. Let's say that I wanted the period of January through June to, I don't know, grab the average values from the prior year for the same months. That's one possibility. I could also say just grab the exact same values that we had last year. Don't assume any changes. We can make changes afterwards. Let me do that for half the range. Let me get the average of the entire year 2025 to use as basis for the second half of my forecast here. Click save, and this will generate a new column that will be shown, everywhere. I can right click and hide the ones that I don't want to see. For example, if I don't care about the forecasted value back in 24, 23, 22, I can hide these just to give you a glimpse of what's available in here. I can freeze, hide, create aggregations on top, format, all that kind of stuff that you're used to from Excel. I only want to see this forecast for my future year. So really, I should maybe hide it from 25 as well and just show them from 26. And now I have, just something here that actually is the exact same values for the first and second quarter and is an average number for the third and fourth quarter. You can see that these values are identical. These two are slightly different. But now the forecasting starts, right? I know that we are launching a new product, and I know that we expect a bump in the electronics revenue in Q1. So I can just double click on a cell and say I'm expecting a 20% increase. I can multiply by 1.2. I could manually add 1 million if that's what I wanted. And you'll see that it updates those numbers, right? If you didn't quite see what happened, let's just add a really large number. All of a sudden our revenue in Q1 2026 is looking pretty great here, right? There are options here for distributing these values slightly differently. If I were to add or subtract something on a total level, I could feed this down, distributing by all kinds of weights or with some kind of trend in mind. And it's pretty easy to quickly arrive at a forecast version that has some kind of logic to it. But of course, I mean, this is replacing an Excel exercise. So a controller or somebody in finance could spend hours tweaking these forecasts in a way that we don't have time to do today, of course, right? You can also, of course, look into adding multiple forecasts. It can be done by just clicking the forecast button again, but you can also create scenarios. So I could say that I have here a very optimistic scenario where I think we're going to be doing really well. Let's just add a little more money to this scenario. But I could also create, a pessimistic scenario in which I decrease the revenue here substantially. Oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. A little unsure if we managed to change anything there. Sometimes it's a little fast, but this is, looking really bad for Q1. And once you've made something that you're happy with, it's possible to go in and, for example, look at what would our plan look like against our original sort of values. What are the drivers that explain some of these trends? Now, I didn't make anything here that made as much sense as I'd hoped, but you kind of get the drift here. You can create different visual outlooks and really present this as a tool for your financial specialists to work directly in. So, I mean, again, this is a replacement for that EPM tool or that Excel sheet that you're currently working with. Now, if these changes, if this is something I wanted to, say, persist in my database and make available for future analysis or reporting in a Power BI report or something like that, I can add a destination to my planning component. You'll need to use your SQL database and Fabric cloud connection that you create inside of Managed Connections. For some reason, I had trouble using the existing connection that I had created a while ago. I had to create a new one. So if you get errors using an old connection, try creating a new one. Maybe you'll have luck with that. And then you can just browse OneLake to find a SQL DB that you're happy with. Only works with SQL DB in Fabric, this write-back action. There's no support for Warehouse and Lakehouse, which I think is a significant downside of this. You'll know maybe if you've worked with SQL DBs in Fabric that they consume interactive CUs, or they are treated as interactive consumption on your Fabric capacity. And so let's call it the margin of error for doing something stupid inside of this tool in terms of shutting down the rest of your capacity is way smaller than if we were doing background operations. You can do something in this tool that is quite compute intense on your SQL DB, say, try to loop through, iterate over, manipulate 200,000 records in your SQL DB at once. I don't know, depending on your capacity, you could see issues here, right? So treat it with caution, maybe isolate this preview workload on a test capacity or something until you're comfortable that you've built something that your users can use without destroying everything. Now I've connected to a semantic model, so I cannot write this data back to the destination that I've inputted in here. I will need to create a separate, a new table for this planning write back to happen to, but it will create that for me. And I can just say, this is the user group test table. We can add that destination and say write back and write back all, and you'll hopefully see that this actually goes really fast. This is writing down to the level of granularity rows for every column and row that I have if I drill down. This is quite a lot of rows that I'm writing back right now. And I will say that this is right now slower than it was last time I tried, but they're completed. And we can go into the logs. This comes out of the box as well. And I wrote 9,030 rows back to my DB in, I don't know, 10 seconds. Was that it? It says here the duration was only 5. Then there was a little bit of UI stuff as well, probably, right? But that's not too bad. I think that's all right. Somehow it doubled the number of rows inside the SQL DB compared to the incoming cell count. Not sure what that's about, but we can always check the DB if you want to. Speaking of which, why don't we, just to show you that data is now inside of my database, the schema here, I need to refresh it. Oh, user group test table, it's there. You'll see that here is the data that we were just discussing. It's in long format. You will need to pivot this, transform it to get something that is probably useful for you, but that's, I think manageable. You could, however, if you prefer, change the write-back type to be wide instead. You can ask it to focus on what's changed instead of writing the full sort of change, the full input every time. There are some options for customization there. Okay, that was quite a lot, and I haven't even, gone into the advanced functionality of what this planning tool can do. I'll try to talk a little bit about it, but I do want to show you some of the other stuff as well. If you want to, it's possible with this tool to do all kinds of what-if analysis, goal setting, do all kinds of comparisons between your scenarios. There is a lot of analytical features in here that I've not shown you yet, and which sort of warrants that you get through the basics first of getting a working plan, a working budget up and running. But these are things that you can look into. Before going to the next component, Jens, I wanted to ask if there are any questions in the chat so far.
No questions so far.
No questions. That means this is new ground. Okay, sure.
There's a couple of comments, but yeah, nice to see you again. And Derek is chipping in with a lot of visuals being available, and I've supplied some links, but that's it. So no questions.
All right. Then let's jump ahead to the next component, the power table, the one that I'm maybe the most excited about myself, but that's, I'm damaged by solutions I've built in the past. Demo power table, just create something new here. Here we go. I'm creating a new table here. I can either connect to an existing SQL DB, or I can upload an Excel sheet. No matter what, I need to define a SQL connection that I can use as sort of the data destination, the write-back destination for this power table, because it will be maintaining a table inside of a database no matter what I do. While planning can sort of live in memory, and it's a little weird like that, power table needs a destination table. So here I can either connect to an existing table, or I could import a table, a schema, connect to a semantic model, and it will create a new table in my SQL DB based on that. Instead of doing that, I wanted to just show you that I already here connected to my DIM product in that retail semantic model that I was connecting to before, and show you that I have in here just, a pretty standard product dimension. If I wanted to, this is just me testing this out earlier today, right? If I wanted to add a new column, I can create a new column, which is either, there's tons of options. I can reference another column in another table. I can create a numeric column based on a formula. It doesn't have to be numeric. I could use concatenate to concatenate strings, that kind of stuff too. Stick to their own terminology, formula column. Or you can just create a new column manually in the database, right? So test column for user group, ignore my bad spelling. What's data type? Something, create that. And it's going to go ahead and create this new column in my DB, instantly executing that SQL statement under the hood. So if I now go into the retail demo DB, you'll see that the table of DIM products will in fact already have that new, empty, but new column right there. And back into the plan sheet, loading. There's a lot of that going back and forth, of course. I can, input data into that column. This is a new entry. Click OK, and you'll get this neat little option to preview all of your changes before you submit them. I could also, be filtering this category. I did this earlier, right? I changed the category of sports to say sports. If we wanted to change that back, I can filter it down, and I can just edit this back. I can copy this value. It's not necessarily as neat as in Excel. I can only copy this a maximum of 200 rows down at once, but you kind of get the drift. Okay, I even exceeded what was in my dimension there. The good thing is I can preview and discard my changes before I actually commit them to the DB if I made a mistake, right? I am not editing live right now. I think this paper trail is really, really nice. Let's just discard those changes and instead show you that if I wanted to, I could enable approvals on this table. So instead of me being able to just make changes, I could say, Jon needs to approve his own work before being able to do anything. I could do multi-level approvals as well, so that if I now went ahead and said new entry, instead of saying submit change, it now says submit for review, and clicking submit for review lets me add descriptions and mark as priority and say, okay, Jon, when do you need to look at this by? Well, tomorrow at the latest. If I am the approver, they will appear in an approval list. I can get the details, I can approve them, I can decline them, and there will be sort of a full audit trail for me to check all of this afterwards. If this would load, I can go in and see what changes have been made on this master data table. And when I think about this tool, and I'm like, wow, I spent not even 200 hours, maybe 400 hours building Power Apps that could do the same. Maybe I would have used a model-driven app and wouldn't have taken me half that time. But custom solutions. I mean, there's so much out of the box here that actually just works that I'm quite blown away, to be honest. This is really nice. There are, of course, a lot of features in here that we haven't really dived into. You could, instead of having regular string data types for these dimension columns, I could change this to be a single select where I manually assign possible values. The downside of doing that with an existing dimension is that it will drop the contents of that column, which is, annoying. There's not like an option to create values of the single select based on the values you already have and kind of make that mapping. So I don't know. You'll have to find some workarounds for that if you're manipulating something that's already well established and you want to change the data types. But when it's set up, it works pretty neatly, and I like that user experience of, well, now maybe I need to save before. There it goes, right? I can now select an option and submit that for review, and it looks nice as well, right? That's, at least if you try to build these solutions yourself in the past, I think it's really, really nice. And of course, I teased that at the beginning. If you wanted to, you can set up forms, you can set up automations on these Power Table sheets. So if I wanted to create a form where I ask a group of users for some kind of input to add new rows, I can do that easily from within the tool. I don't need to create an MS form. I don't need to use another third-party tool for that. I can set up automations with triggers. If I wanted to create an automation, there are triggers that I can just pick and choose from. When a form is submitted, what do I want to do with that form? And there's all kinds of rules that you can use, all kinds of actions that you can use. It's basically a mini version of Power Automate embedded within the tool for the greatest hits of functionality. Of course, not as comprehensive as Power Automate, but out of the box, very impressive. And then, of course, there's the access aspect of this. Pretty comprehensive possibilities for managing object level access and row level security regarding, both adding, updating, and deleting rows in your master data tables. And same goes for the planning sheet, by the way. In there, it's just going to be the security tab up here that you'll be editing your security options within. If only this would load. Here we go. I can make changes here to who are able to provide inputs, who can see scenarios, who can add comments, who can do write back. I forgot to tell you about the pretty excellent comment functionality. We've built tons of Power Apps in the past just to fix that gap in Power BI, right? If you are working with these tools, there is a built-in comment functionality. That is what you would have hoped the built-in stuff in Power BI was. You're able to just, open a comment pane and add comments at different levels of detail, assign them to users, close tickets when something has been done. It's basically a mini ticketing system in shape of a comment setup. Works pretty well too. Now, there's not that much time left, so I think it's time to just quickly go to the intelligent reporting here, the intelligence component, and talk briefly about what's possible here. It looks like Power BI. You'll have a data pane, you'll have a visualizations pane, but the visualizations pane will be dominated by this chart picker of 100+ different IBCS style charts, which means you'll get these charts that are kind of, I guess, known for overlapping bars. And basically, I think what Power BI visuals should have been to some extent. My one complaint with the visuals of this tool is that it's difficult to make look nice. It's really ambiguous where the formatting options for each of these visualizations and stuff are. Like if I wanted to change this visual, I can go to this overlapped bar up here and change stuff there. Sometimes there's a pane that opens on the right-hand side where you can change some formatting stuff. Sometimes you need to open that from a context menu here. It's a little weird how you format things. And in general, just adding like, how do I even add a title to this is sometimes hard. You can definitely do it. It's not that bad, but it takes some getting used to. It is not Power BI in the sense that it's not very user friendly. I mean, how do I even now increase this text size? Okay, I do that there. That was at least logical, right? How do I format this now? Okay, it's up in the properties, which then open in a weird pane here, right? Now I can change the same things, but not all of them. I need to also go into the layout to change. I don't know. I'm not happy with that part of it. What I am happy with is the possibility to integrating your planning sheets and your Power Table sheets directly in the dashboard. If we zoom in a little, if I were to update the values in this planning sheet, I can do that from within the report itself. It will take a little while, but you can see now it says queued for update, and it will reflect that change in the underlying data once it finishes updating. So you can see now the blue scenario surpassed the orange one. That's pretty cool that you can just have that built into your reporting solution. So lots of stuff to like. Obviously, the catalog of IBCS charts is much wider than the default Power BI visuals. You don't have to do all kinds of weird SVGs to overcome that. Building Gantt charts, I haven't built one myself, but they look amazing, and I'm sure they will be super useful as well. But in general, I won't say that this is, as good as Power BI yet. It has some different perks, but overall the user friendliness and the performance especially, I think, is subpar to what Power BI has to offer. But very interesting nonetheless, if only for those reasons. I want to jump out of the live demo for a second just to go on to sort of discussion and that kind of stuff. But are there any questions before we go that far, Jens? Anything in the chat?
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. Eric is raising the question. Are there any lookup tables so that I can select items for a cell value rather than typing it maybe typing it differently in the next cell and so on?
I'm actually not 100% sure what all the options are for lookup columns, but it is definitely possible to reference other tables in your database and map them automatically so that, if you have a table with your SKUs and the cost, but you were lacking the cost column in here, you can look them up from that other table. That's definitely possible. Whether it's possible to create one where we can quickly check what I'll edit this. But I probably need to create that relation column for that to work. But I'm pretty sure you can populate the drop downs based on a relational lookup. But I haven't made that test specifically, Eric, unfortunately.
No. Okay. So another question is from Christian. On the normal user front, is there a different distribution channel compared to the full developer view that you have open now? So I'm guessing, what is the end user going to see?
Yeah. You're hitting one of the sore spots, I think, of this solution. The distribution options are not great. They will have to open the plan item. They will be in reading mode. If you don't give them the permissions to, they won't have the editing tab available, and they will have to go through the Explorer to connect to, say, that intelligent reporting sheet I made before, and they can consume that from within this interface. So your end users are consuming the same place as you're editing. It's just whether or not you've sort of toggled the editing mode or not, which is a shame, right? I wish we could put this into a workspace app or an org app or something like that, but we'll see in the future.
But do you get to set if you have edit rights or no edit rights? Or
if you get to see that?
Sorry,
what was the question? If you can see whether you have that?
No, are you able to assign only read-only access or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and you do that individually you can either do that individually for each component, but you can also, on the item as a whole, you can provide granulated access as well. So there are ways of controlling whether or not this editing tab is even available to people or not. That is the good thing. But I'm not very impressed with the ways that you're able to expose this to end users. I think it's a shame that you can't sort of integrate it with the rest of the consumption part of the platform. It feels very much like a very isolated workload right now, the only exception being that we can, of course, integrate pretty well with the SQL DBs and read data from semantic models.
But with the unified approach for Fabric, that we might suspect that would be in the roadmap, right?
Yeah, I would assume so, but we can tackle one or other sort of limitation downside that I will also have in the slides a little later. But this product is Microsoft is licensing this solution from a third party called Lumel, which some of you might have heard of. They are known for these kinds of EPM tools, but I'm not sure what that deal encompasses, right? How long-term of a solution is this for Fabric? They say it's a native workload, and they say not to worry about it. And the way you pay for it is only with CUs in Fabric. There's no additional license cost, neither user-based nor tool-based. But will that stay the same forever? I mean, they say it will, but how well they're able to align this product with the roadmap, I think, is very much up to a third-party vendor as well, which is, I think, a big shame that this is not Microsoft themselves. It's essentially the first case of, the workloads part of Fabric. Microsoft have basically taken a workload and said, let's bake this in so it's natively available to everybody. And I'm not sure that I feel good about that.
No. Now let's see when it gets GA. Maybe we have some more reliable information at that time.
Maybe.
So Mads has a question. Is it correctly understood that Fabric Planner as a whole is going to replace Microsoft Power Platform altogether?
I wouldn't go that far. I think it replaces some apps that you would build and some automate flows that you would build and some Dataverse scenarios, mostly related to master data management and planning efforts. But if you are building, if you already have a big estate in Dataverse Dynamics that you're managing there, I don't see a reason for you to move it to Planner. Functionality will be smaller in Planner, and also any existing Canvas app, you have much greater possibility of designing your UI and the user experience. I mean, here we get pre-built sort of table views of things, and that's the strength of Fabric Plan, and then the visualization side, of course, as well, and the analytics on top of those tables. But if you're doing anything graphical with your applications, then you're not being replaced anytime soon.
No, so you could argue that Microsoft Fabric Plan is replacing a very particular subset of Power Platform apps.
Exactly.
But not the rest.
Exactly.
They will still be very much alive out there.
Exactly.
All right, I think that was concluding all of the questions, and I know you have a hard stop.
Yeah.
So let's be.
I'll just quickly sort of wrap up my takes on we're already discussing these things, but what do I think is great and what do I not think is great? It's awesome that we have a native tool in Fabric that enables these things with great integration with SQL DBs and with semantic models, especially built-in access and security, built-in licensing, paying only with your CUs. It's not great that it's a preview. It's not great that it's a third party developing the workload. I think it has a pretty steep learning curve. And right now there are a lot of errors. I've banged my head against the wall quite a lot the past couple of weeks. I also don't like that it's right back to SQL DBs and Fabric only. Where's the warehouse integration? I can do that with the Power Apps and with translytical task flows, right? So those are the kind of things I'm looking for. It's also a little unknown how much CU this item specifically will consume. The SQL DB and Fabric consumption is not so surprising. It consumes what it does. If you were running the equivalent SQL queries directly on the DB, you'd know the kind of consumption you're seeing. It's going to be interactive usage, and as such, only smoothed over 5 minutes. So risk of throttling your capacity is real. But the plan item itself, while it's in preview, we don't know. And the docs page that was supposed to have the info about the billing meters is unavailable. So I don't know what they're planning on, how expensive it's going to be. Just very quickly on these, we don't have time to go into everything here, but generally speaking, I'm very impressed with how feature-rich these tools are, and not so impressed with the preview disabilities that are present, right, with the amount of errors and the performance issues that I've already explained. I think the solution is very sensitive to you changing the underlying semantic model or SQL DBs as well. I mean, maybe that makes sense. But if, as I showed you in the power table, right, changing the data type from a text to a single select, it deletes the entire column. If I were to change the category name of sports to sports in a dim table that I'm using for my planning sheet, all values in the planning sheet will disappear for that category. It's just sensitive to changes like that. And I'm not surprised that's the case. It's really hard to build, an application that automatically fixes these things, but you will have to build some supporting guardrails, supporting logic around your SQL DBs and your write-back tables to make this really work in production. And I've not gone there yet myself. We are in the middle of Q&A. Before we spent the last few minutes potentially doing so, just wanted to shout that there's the official Microsoft docs to learn a little about this, and there's the docs nobody tells you about. docs.fabricplan.com is the place you go for actually learning how to build these things. The official Microsoft documentation is not good, and this link doesn't really appear anywhere. I'm not even sure how I found it in the first place. It doesn't show up on Google when I try, at least not last time I tried. They're also showing that there's like a fourth component type called InfoBridge, which is not visible to me yet, and it's not in the Microsoft docs. So maybe this is something that is coming soon. I don't know. But this is a place to check out if you're trying this yourself. And then finally, just wanted to plug the date is wrong. That's last year's date. November 19th, 2026, Thursday, November 19th. Fabric Symposium will return for the third time, so a little bit off topic, but if you are working with Fabric and want to come see real use cases explained live on stage by the people who build and use them and not by consultants or salespeople, this is a conference for you. Ticket sales are not live yet, but mark it in your calendar so your colleagues don't plan a weekend getaway. It's a Thursday though, so hopefully you're in town when it happens. But more importantly, I'm also looking for presentations, case organizations to present at Fabric Symposium. We've had more than 12 different organizations represented over the course of the first 2 years, showing what they built for what it's worth. No reason to have something that's perfect. We just want to see what's out there. So if you are using Fabric in your organization and you have something you want to show, I'd love to hear from you, and please get in touch if that's the case. That's more or less all I had. We have time for a single question here at the end, if there are any left, Jens.
Yeah, no more questions. So I guess we will just call it a day now. Thank you so much for stepping in, Jon. That was a last-minute change of the schedule, and I'm really grateful that you could turn up and again deliver a really good presentation. And now on something that I also found very surprisingly rich in feature functionality, and I think it actually looks rather good. I've been involved myself in doing some attempts on doing these planning tools way back, and this looks really rich in features. So that's a exciting time ahead.
I think for sure, if I can leave just one final message, if you're doing these things in Excel, there's no way this is worse than that. I mean, it's just the baseline, right? If you could have your Excel sheet hooked directly up to your SQL DB, so at least your changes was persisted there, and you have an audit log, I mean, what's there to lose, right? So if you are maintaining master data in Excel, go ahead, create those power tables, see how that works out, test it side by side for a while, and make a decision, right? I think that's a no-brainer for most organizations with those things stuck in Excel.
Absolutely. And let that be the final word for today. Sure. Thank you so much, Jon. Have a wonderful day out there all together.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure.
All right, see you around, guys. Bye.